It's a sure sign that you're doing a pretty good job when your colleagues are offering the better part of $1 million to mercenaries to bust you out so you can get back to work. And that's what allegedly just happened after the surprise arrest of 2 fugitive Italian mobsters in Colombia, who are now accused of connecting the mafia clans of Italy's Camorra with the narcos of Colombia's cartels, brokering massive deals for a cocaine pipeline to Europe. Bagging 2 mafia fugitives just days apart in the heartland of Colombia's cartels was dramatic enough. One of them betrayed by his love of custom-made pool tables, and the other from posting selfies from Pablo Escobar's graveside. But what happened next is almost mind-blowing. The mob reporter here, with news of the surprisingly careless mistakes these veteran mobsters made that helped police zero in on them 6,000 miles from home, what they were doing there, and a daring fire and blood plan for escape. There's a lot going on. Let me tell you about it. There is a saying that every villain has a vice that brings them down. And that is often true. I've seen it time and again. Rarely, though, is the connection between a lifestyle passion and the undoing of Major League gangland figures so stark and bewildering as we have here with Gustavo Nocella and his boss, Luigi Belvedere. Colombian authorities called them invisible bosses in the cartel's gangland. The first to fall was Gustavo Nocella. He was caught on October 8, 2024, after years in hiding, but it was kept secret until October 20th, for fear other targets might get spooked and flee. His arrest was hailed by the Colombian government with such exuberance, it made him sound like the biggest mafioso around. The 58-year-old Nocella was known by the nickname Hermes, and considered an important intermediary within the Camorra, which is one of the main mafia organizations in Italy, which sits alongside Cosa Nostra and the 'Ndrangheta in Italy's organized crime tradition. Nocella was facing a 5.5-year prison sentence in Italy for international drug trafficking when he decided instead to settle in Colombia. Both Nocella and Belvedere settled in the same ritzy neighborhood of Medellin called El Poblado. There, they each rented 4 or so grand apartments for big bucks, using other people's names to hide their presence. They kept changing apartments every few months. Smart move. However, authorities say Nocella had a passion outside of work. He loved to shoot pool. This was the vice that brought this alleged villain down. He insisted on always having a good pool table inside his apartment. He was particular about the tables he played on, too. He wanted, in fact, this model, handmade by a small specialist company that's been making pool tables in Colombia for 40 years. Nocella chose the less popular red top and had it delivered to wherever his new pad was. His choice of tabletop color is appropriate because at that time an Interpol red notice had been issued against him, which is a request to law enforcement around the world to locate and arrest a fugitive wanted for serious crime. Authorities say tracing the pool table betrayed Nocella. More than just pool balls were racked up in his apartment that night. He had a bad break. He didn't realize he was behind the 8 ball, and right on cue, he was snookered. His apartment was swarmed by commandos. We see it here, and he landed in the side pocket of the cops. While under surveillance, police had watched him walk his dog around town each day. Now look at this photo. His poor pooch looks worried. A man's best friend indeed. Police seized phones and computers, and a closet stuffed full of expensive sneakers. Days later, on October 24, 2024, Luigi Belvedere was also greeted inside his apartment by heavily armed commandos. That's what we see here. He'd been on the run from authorities in Italy for 4 years and was on Italy's list of 100 most wanted fugitives. His arrest was important enough for it to be revealed by Colombia's president, Gustavo Petro. Belvedere's secret vice that led to his downfall was his idolization of Pablo Escobar. Escobar, the original Colombian drug lord, remains a legendary figure in organized crime. He's seen as the epitome of an all-powerful boss. At his peak, Escobar supplied 80% of the world's cocaine, while his outrageous violence, corruption, and intimidation made him almost untouchable. Until he wasn't, and he died in a rooftop shootout with police in 1993. Belvedere's adoration for Pablo Escobar may have been part of the attraction to settling in Medellin, which was once the base of Escobar's epic empire. The Italian apparently visited the Pablo Escobar Museum, run by Escobar's family, from the mansion he once lived in. We certainly know he visited Monte Sacro Cemetery, where Pablo Escobar and some of his family are buried and memorialized. There he posed for a photo. Not a selfie really, someone else is taking the picture, maybe even Nocella. They often hung out together. But this photo, this pilgrimage, helped end Belvedere's run. See, he couldn't resist sharing the photo. It helped pinpoint where he was and spurred authorities to act. That Belvedere was living in Colombia was not a secret. I mean, really, it had become so much a part of who he was, his nickname was El Colombiano, Spanish for the Colombian. Now, is that what we call cultural appropriation? His fugitive status was even mentioned in court in Italy at his trial in 2001 for drug charges. It was even mentioned that he had opened 2 pizzerias in Cartagena on Colombia's north coast. That court case in Italy stemmed from his mob roots, his expansion into the drug trade at home in Caserta, about 25 miles north of Naples, the home of the Camorra Mafia. Caserta is a picturesque place. Big movies have scenes filmed there, including 2 Star Wars movies and 1 of the Mission Impossible movies. And for my viewers who like mafia pop culture, Caserta is where Tony Soprano's therapist, Jennifer Melfi, said her family was from on The Sopranos. A decade ago, Belvedere emerged as a real talent. In the vernacular of the mob, he was an earner. Belvedere started moving hashish and then cocaine. By 2017, he had pushed rivals aside and was navigating the feuding, backstabbing, cluttered clans of the Camorra. In Italy, he was undone by a snitch who told prosecutors that at his first meeting with Belvedere, the emerging narco didn't want drugs, but guns. 10,000 euros worth of Kalashnikovs, Scorpions, and some handguns. He had larger ambition, as that might suggest, and when police came for him in 2020, they scooped up his gang, but he couldn't be found. While still a fugitive, authorities put him on trial with a dozen other accused. He was found guilty in absentia and handed his final prison sentence this past June, just short of 19 years in prison. He is 32 years old. Belvedere then turned his back on being a traditional mob boss, with a stretch of turf in Italy and a social club as his headquarters. He re-envisioned his future in international logistics and being a middleman for one of the world's most in-demand underworld commodities. In Colombia, investigators allege, Nocella and Belvedere forged close operational bonds with 2 of Colombia's leading cartels, the Clan del Golfo and La Oficina, which is Spanish for the office. They coordinated large-scale shipments of Colombian cocaine to the Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany, often hidden in maritime cargo. Business must have been good for all parties, because there was an astonishing fallout after his arrest. Here's what came next. It was a move right out of Pablo's playbook. To spring Belvedere from prison, an explosion of violence was immediately plotted, authorities allege. The Camorra in Europe dropped 3 billion pesos on the table for narco mercenaries to free him. That's about $700,000 US. Belvedere was to fake an illness, one serious enough to require medical intervention. Then, when police transferred him to a hospital for treatment, a narco army would attack the convoy in the street, and Belvedere would be freed, leaving nobody standing in their way. That heavy lifting was offered to their cartel partners in Colombia, who had the manpower to pull it off, authorities said. It sounds like it would have been a bloodbath, but the escape plot was uncovered and thwarted, and Belvedere was transferred by air from Medellin to Colombia's capital, Bogotá, under strict security. Both Belvedere and Nocella are expected to be extradited to Italy. The arrests are part of a developing pattern. The virtual monopoly that Pablo Escobar once had has been shattered in Colombia, and the importation logistics have become more diffuse. Large criminal networks in Europe and North America are no longer content to buy product domestically from importers. The big boys are increasingly sending emissaries to South America to buy direct. This was the secret to the surging success for Italy's 'Ndrangheta, the Balkan cartel, and the Albanian cocaine kings. But there's also a new pushback from governments. Colombia seems fully engaged in cutting off these foreign narcos and severing ties between foreign crime organizations and their domestic cartels. These recent arrests were a 6-month collaboration between Colombian, Italian, and British law enforcement, working with Europol and Interpol. I know we will soon see more arrests of foreign drug barons in Colombia. Stay tuned. Please tap the thanks button to leave me a tip and give this video a like and leave a comment. That helps juice the algorithm, which helps me a lot. And please make sure you're subscribed to the Mob Reporter with notifications set to all. Thanks for watching to the end.